Well, folks, another day in the market and another windfall for people that were listening yesterday when we covered one of the stocks that had unusual option activity. We've got the 411 on that and a lot more on today's Rebel's Edge. Bang.
How great is Florida, John? I mean, unreal, right?
Yep.
I mean, the weather's unreal. The people down here are fantastic. It's another beautiful sunny day after we got into town yesterday. And I don't know, at some point in time, we might be seeing some highly thought of people, huh?
Oh, yeah. We might be with one of the president's sons tonight. But folks, we, Pete Najarian and me, we are at the Breakers, listening to a company that is about to come public, that does small modular reactors, SMRs, as well as mining for uranium. This is going to be a monster. And we'll share that with you as we get a little closer to the date when they're going to be coming public. But until the government opens up, Pete, nobody can do much.
No.
The SEC is not officially closed, but they can't really get a lot done right now. So a lot of things have been pushed off. Let's just put it that way. But like Pete says, the Breakers, folks, if you've never been, you should come. This is phenomenal. I don't know how many. They must have 4 or 5 pools here. The grounds are spectacular. Like Pete said, people are marvelous. And boy, what a great place for meetings and so forth. I mean, I've been to Mar-a-Lago just across from here, but this is pretty special too, Pete.
Special for sure, spectacular for sure. The ceilings, everything in the place. I mean, it makes you feel like you're in, I don't know, somewhere over in Europe, John, and something that was built 200 years ago that's just outrageously cool. And that's what this is, although it's up to date and it's beautiful. I mean, you shut your door at night, you shut a real door. There ain't no hollowness in these things, man. You get a good night's sleep.
That's right. It's pretty dang silent in here. All right, let's dive into a macro minute, Pete. And today I'm going to say, well, the equities were drifting lower, but I'll tell you, the NASDAQ wasn't just drifting. It was like bang. They hit the NASDAQ pretty good. Gold also tracking lower, adding to yesterday's significant declines. And I'm going to more or less say, Pete, that's what we're looking at here. Nothing positive about the UK's September inflation reading either. So I've put all that together and I say, no wonder we're easing by about 1% in the NASDAQ.
And we talk about these jobs numbers and all these other things, John. I mean, how much, after all the negativity of what we've seen coming out of these things, and I don't mean negative because of what the numbers are, but the fact that the numbers haven't exactly been all that correct. That's been something that's been kind of an interesting deal over time or whatever. And it's something I think that when we're looking at today, what I like, John, and don't like, but the good part of it is earnings have been a pretty damn good savior of markets that are kind of wobbling around, so to speak. But that being said, on a day like today, you're talking about the NASDAQ getting hit pretty hard. Well, that's basically earnings related because that's a lot influenced by one of the 4 stocks we're going to be talking about in a minute here. But we still, overall, I would say that the earnings so far this quarter are pretty spectacular, with a few exceptions, and one of them is today.
Well, and we're seeing a little bit of a rally in energy prices today, Pete. Not huge, but, we're back up over 58 to like, 58.60 or so. It's up about 2%, 2.33% for the West Texas Intermediate. So I'm going to say that the futures we're looking at today, I could say Bitcoin too, because it's down, Pete, about $3,600 back down to 108. Either of those two, take your pick, oil or Bitcoin, going in opposite directions today, Pete.
Yeah, and the Bitcoin thing is interesting, John, and that's been very volatile. And I will say this, the volatility index itself has been volatile. I mean, we were stuck in that spot for a while, right? Where we were 15 or 16. Then about 2 weeks ago, we started to spike up once again. And as we've gotten into October, we've had some nice jumps up to 22, back down to 20, up to 23, back down a little bit, going up to 25. And now here we are, we're starting to ease back a little bit. We're 18, 19, somewhere in there right now, John, and 19 last I looked. So I think just keeping an eye on the volatility. And I'll tell you what, we have seen some of the different options trading in there not too terribly long ago. Now it starts to make even more sense what those spreads really were looking for, John, because they were going out to November and December, like we talked about. Huge option paper. So in other words, going out, buying some time, but also buying the idea that there's going to be some volatility coming, and they wanted to catch it. And I think that so far they've done a pretty good job of that with those volatility trades that we're trading about a month or so ago now, probably 2-3 weeks, maybe a month ago. Yeah.
Well, let's dive into some stocks then, Pete. And of course, we're going to start with Beyond Meat because it was beyond spectacular for anybody who followed us and the unusual activity that Mark and Justin cited yesterday, Pete, and Jeff Garbaz, also from the Rebel Squeeze Pro. This one was set up to run, Pete, and it went from 230 just before the show yesterday, $2.34 to over $7 today. Now, did it pull back? Yeah, it did. But you had to be crazy not to take some of that money off the table when you got that big pop. We were going back and forth with a number of folks about it. And my gosh, Pete, 400%. You know, I think Jeff said he registered a 375% profit in a day for that one. Just spectacular. And glad to see it. And remember where you can always subscribe, folks, marketrebellion.com/get started.
Yeah, you're right on all counts, John. I mean, the volumes that you and I were looking at the other day, we were just looking at the volumes here in this particular name, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's just absolutely incredible. So somebody sniffed something out. I don't know. Has Kitty been around at all, John? Because it sure feels like this is a meme stock that's going absolutely crazy. And the triggers for the short side of this thing with the what we like to call squeeze has been definitely in play. And when we got to those highs, John, it was not just even 7. I think it got up to like 765 or something like that. Doesn't matter. Huge jump like that, you got to react. And we talk about discipline all the time and being disciplined and taking off some. Doesn't mean you got to take off the whole thing, but you certainly would have wanted to take off some, take a little bit off, put it in the pocket, and then just see what happens after that. I think we are back into this world where the meme stock is starting to pop up a little bit more frequently than we had seen, John. They did have the expansion with Walmart, this partnership that they've got for Beyond Meat. I think that's something that stands out. But you look at the balance sheet and you go, oh my gosh, this has how many shorts? 51% of the stock is short. That's a pretty monstrous number, and that's why we're seeing such a violent move today. I mean, 10 or 15% short. It's pretty good size. We're talking 51% short. That's a massive short. So interesting to see how this thing reacted. And of course, as you mentioned, John, that unusual option activity certainly did sort of sniff something out yesterday. Pretty amazing. Absolutely amazing, I'd say.
Yep. And traded 2 billion shares yesterday, folks. I mean, a phenomenal number. I think it was 1.8 million call options again yesterday, folks. And with these meme stocks, you know, absent any other news, you want to ride that wave and be getting off before the ride stops. Because when it stops, it does exactly what it did. And that is it comes all the way back down, probably to unchanged or pretty close to it. Yeah. So you squeeze the folks, and then you got to get off, take your profits, move on, roll up if you choose to. But this was a classic setup, Pete. All right, Let's talk about Netflix, because the stock dropped pretty significantly, $120 following their Q3 earnings report. They missed, Pete, earnings per share by over $1. It's been a while since Netflix missed that bad. they were expecting 696. They did 587. So more than $1 off. It's not surprising to see the stock drop 9% for such a big miss, Pete.
Yeah, it is a big miss, and that's a big problem. And you can see, I mean, the graph says it all, right? I mean, that kind of a drop that you're seeing, and that is a big leader as far as pulling on the Nasdaq, John. When you take a look over at that with Netflix, but they have a great balance sheet when you look at it from the company perspective. Yes, they missed a big time when it comes to the earnings. The revenue was basically in line, basically for the most part, still up 17% year over year. So I thought that was a pretty impressive number. And I'm not trying to defend Netflix on that, but I think you have to be real and say, all right, well, year over year, if this thing's up 70% revenue, that's pretty good. But here's the problem. They've got some disputes going down in with taxes in Brazil, and they use that as part of the reason for some of the miss that they were talking about. Also talked about the full year guidance, and they maintained it, which I think is kind of interesting. So should the stock be getting punished as much as it is? Well, maybe. They certainly missed on that in a big way, but the margins and that decrease that we were seeing there, it's 28%. It was 31.5%. So the margins are coming in a little bit. I kind of like it anyway, John. Just the fact that their revenue is still growing the way it is. And I don't know how long the Brazil thing will last, but it is something where potentially that gets taken care of one way or the other. Maybe that could give this thing a pretty good boost. So I like the fact that on this hit that it's taken, 8%, 9% to the downside, something like that.
Yeah,
It might be something to at least keep a close eye on, because I think there are some positives along with the negatives that are there today.
Well, of course, I agree. And I think Netflix also, Pete, they were mentioned as a potential bidder for Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD. They have denied it. People still might be sort of thinking, well, maybe they're just denying it, but they really are interested. I don't think so. The CEO said, we have no interest in owning a studio like that. That's not our game. So I would say that's pretty definitive.
Yeah.
So if people are pushing on Netflix because of that, I think you could see more of a rally back in the near future. All right. Let's talk about Intuitive Surgical. Almost the exact opposite of Netflix. Instead of missing, they beat, and they beat in a big way. If you basically said, well, they were expected to earn, $6.96 like Netflix was, they were expecting $1.98. They came up with $2.40. So if you extended that, tripled that number, they practically beat by the same amount that Netflix missed by, Pete.
Yeah.
And 23% year over year increase as far as the revenue or sales side of it. That's why this stock, which was up, I know, about 18%, still up 14%. It's a very good day and a very expensive stock. A lot of reasons why people end up trading options, because it's not an option to just trade stock, Pete.
Yeah. It was a great third quarter for them, John. I mean, across the board, you hit it. You talked about the earnings themselves, the revenue itself. The Da Vinci volumes are growing year over year as well, John. Up 20% worldwide is what they reported. So you put all that together, and then all of a sudden you start getting the folks out there that are following these. JP Morgan, RBC, both raised their price target now for ISRG. Pretty interesting to see how they have an incredible balance sheet, John. So there's a lot of positives, I think, to this one, and it's exactly like you said. A lot of this is what was the problem with Netflix. So it's almost like that reverse mirror image of each other, and it's interesting to see how strong ISRG was, though. I mean, Intuitive Surgical has always been a fascinating company anyway, but I think that they're showing that this is a company that's in for the long haul. And what they're doing and the growth that they're seeing, if they're up 20%, John, that's a big statement for what they're doing with Da Vinci and the volumes that they're talking about there. And I can understand why some of those folks are actually starting to lift some of those price targets, because it sure seems like they are on a great roll right now.
Well, let's wind it up then, Pete, with Texas Instruments. Now, it is rare to see Texas Instruments move as much as it did to the downside. Was down 17%. Then it cut into that loss, as frequently stocks do after, cooler heads prevail, after amateur hour, the first hour of trading. And then it's moved all the way now, Pete, to where it's only down about 5% on the day. Now it opened at 163.96, traded down to 163 even, Pete, and then began this bounce. So where is it right now? It's trading 171. So it's better than $8 above the low of the day. It's down 5.19%. The reason, of course, that it's down is mixed third quarter results, but people are apparently not so upset because it only missed EPS by 1 cent, Pete.
Yeah.
So perhaps they did push it down a little too far and a little too fast.
I think they did, John. I think that's exactly right. I mean, basically they were in line. You missed by a penny. I mean, let's be honest. That's not a huge miss by any stretch. And basically we call that one in line. And then all of a sudden you look over at the revenue and they beat on the revenue. They disappointed on the guidance. But here's the problem. The reason that their guidance isn't really there is they're talking about all the macroeconomic things. And I thought we were kind of over that, right? I mean, I know that those can be factors, but I don't know that they had to play that card. But either way, I think you can understand when you look at this thing and you say, well, what is the price to earnings, the PE that we always like to look at? It's about a 26. That's not that bad. In the environment that we're in with the moves that we've seen to the upside in many cases, I think Texas Instrument that's probably a fair value, maybe even a strong value for them, the fact that it's trading at a 26 PE. And you can see by the recovery that you're talking about, they were hammering this thing, but it's kind of been working its way out of that for the rest of the day. So interesting to see this one. And it's all about, the next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter. And so I think that's something that when they put out that negative, that caught people probably off guard, but it seems like maybe they've been able to shift around from that. And that's why the stock looks much better than it did at the start of the day. That's for sure.
Absolutely. It's like we both said, I don't need to belabor the point, but we talked about a big miss, we talked about a big beat, and then a slight miss in this case. And that slight miss doesn't justify a 16% drop. It just does not, in my opinion. And obviously other people must agree, or they see something that you and I also see, Pete. All right, let's do a little sports, Pete, on the windup here.
All right, we'll have a little bit of fun here, John. I'm going to the NFL. Who's the best team right now in the NFL? And I mean by record, not necessarily the eyeball and everything else, although I think you could say the eyeball looks pretty damn good, but it's the Indianapolis Colts. It really is. It is the Indianapolis Colts. And who would have thunk it, right? I mean, going into this, they lost a couple of different guys off the offensive line. They didn't have a quarterback that they've been trying for years to draft somebody. They haven't been able to do that. On a whim, they went out and they got Daniel Jones, right, from the Minnesota Vikings. And all they've been able to do, John, is win. They're now 6-1. They have the best record in the NFL as of right now. And I guess the question is, can they keep it up? And so I started to look and I saw that, was their schedule fairly soft? I could say that you could say that it was a softer schedule that they have, but they have no control over that. They play who they play, and they've been winning, and they won 6 out of them. And the one loss was to what I think is a really good Los Angeles Rams team. So watch how that whole thing is playing out. The Titans are the next one, and I think the way the Titans have been playing, John, they're probably the struggles that they've had. I think the Colts probably have a good opportunity there. Pittsburgh, kind of a 50-50. Atlanta, maybe 50-50. The Chiefs, 50-50. And Houston, I think they might have the edge. But they still have some great opportunities in front of them. And all you've got to do when you break down the Colts is say, now, wait a minute. They've got a damn good defense. They've got a quarterback who's been on fire and an offensive line who doesn't let him get sacked. When you've got that sort of a recipe, John, he's only had 6 sacks. It's one of the lowest sack quarterbacks as a starter in the NFL right now. He's got a 71% completion. Does he throw a lot of touchdowns? Not really. He throws some. He runs some. He does a pretty damn good job. And then when you can run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, who's only averaging 5.3 yards a carry, John, nearly 700 yards already. This kid from Wisconsin, he has been a stud. He continues to be a stud. Credit to the offensive line as a good pass protection offensive line, and obviously putting in some pretty nice holes for Jonathan Taylor. So I don't know. I'm becoming a bigger believer all the time, but now they're going to have to prove a little something with Atlanta, who's played pretty well. Chiefs obviously are on a roll again. And Pittsburgh, you just never know what you're going to get with Aaron Rodgers and the defense that they've got up there. But they really look like one of the best teams in football right now. What do you think?
Well, here's the stats that bear that out, Pete. The points per game, 33. That's first in the league. Most points average per game. Defense, 20 points is what they allow. That's 8th in the league. So they're elite on offense, and they're in the upper 25%, upper 25 percentile of defenses so far this year. Yards per game on the offense, 380 yards per game. Third down conversions is almost 47%. So that means they sustain drives. That means they keep the other team off the field, Pete. Because if they can drive down, to your point, there are some great quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, of course, Drake May, that are putting up very impressive stats on the touchdowns thrown and all that sort of thing. But in many cases, they score too quickly. Not on every drive, of course, but if you score too quickly, your defense doesn't get to rest. And the other team's offense is on the field, which means they have a chance of scoring more points. I know that people can score defensive points as well, but when we look at it, I think grinding it out like the Colts have, having that great tight end that I wish the Bears would have drafted, Pete, because I'm not saying the guy that the Bears got was bad, but Warren is a different level. Everybody knew it. I don't know why the Bears didn't realize it, but this kid is making a real name for himself, and he might be a first-team All-Pro as a rookie, which almost never happens at that position. So I'm going to say, Pete, you're absolutely right. Colts deserve to be number one in the league, and they're likely to stay there if they can get through these next 4 or 5 games that are going to test them.
And the key in the NFL, as we all know, is if you can be healthy too. And so far, I think they've been very fortunate and pretty daggone healthy. They don't have some of these teams, man. It's like they're missing 6 and 8 starters. I mean, it's crazy out of the 22. That makes it a little more difficult. But this team has done a great job so far. And give credit to the coach, the quarterback, the running back, the offensive line, the defense for what they have accomplished. Like you were talking about, it's amazing. All right, next up for you, John, the SEC. Now, who would have thunk that if the SEC, they've got one team that certainly I think people thought, well, these guys are pretty damn good. They've got all the money in the world, and they're going to be one of the leaders, right? And I'm not talking about Alabama. No, I'm not talking about Georgia. No, I'm talking about Texas A&M. And Texas and Oklahoma are a part of this whole thing too now. But who stands out, and it's just shows you that there's parity coming into these different sports, and in this case, different. You got the pro level and the college level, but look at the parity that we've got at the college level. And you look at Missouri, John, they're 6-1. I mean, they are in the SEC. People sort of forget that sometimes. Vanderbilt, they're 6-1. Also, SEC. It's amazing how well these two schools have performed, have recruited, and done all the things that they've done to get to where they are. Now, there's still a lot of football left in the season, but I'll tell you what, John, it's pretty shocking to me how well they're doing. And if you don't think that there's more and more parity going on, I got another one for you. So we talked about the Colts at the next level, right? Well, how about Indiana? You know what Indiana is? Number 2 in the country. I mean, that coach has done an amazing job. Indiana, who's known for basketball, but they ain't known for football, John, is sitting there pretty high on the Big Ten side of things. And the Ohio State-Indiana game, let's hope it's a great game. Let's hope it's one of those phenomenal things that they got a shot. And by the way, the team that they smoked, Illinois just keeps on grinding it out. That's another team that, somewhere, some way, they might get into the playoff, John, because what they've been able to accomplish and some of the teams that they've beaten, but they got the crap kicked out of them by Indiana. So they need Indiana to keep on going because maybe that will help them a little bit more on that big loss they had earlier in the year.
Well, Pete, last year, that was the first time they'd been as high up on that stage. Yeah, they had Penix, I think, Pete, and a couple other pretty good players over the last, 5 years, 10 years, but not enough, and certainly not the depth. And last year when they got, they walked in undefeated playing Ohio State. Well, Ohio State pretty much drubbed them. And it was at the Horseshoe in Columbus. Well, now these guys, I don't think, are going to be wowed by Ohio State this year. And I'm not saying that they're good. I still think Ohio State is the best, Pete.
Yeah.
But Indiana's defense impresses me. They're a great team. They really play for this coach like crazy. And, when those guys meet this year, I think it's going to be something special.
I think the coach is so cocky. I love it. When they ask him questions, he just fires right back at them like, look, this ain't the Indiana team that you guys are all used to in the press. This is my Indiana team. And he has been a game changer and a season changer of a coach who's put them on the map. They were on the map last year. They're on the map this year. And the only thing that could hurt them, they lost one of their players, John, who got an injury on the defense, who's a very integral part of the defense. So that part is sad. But let's hope they don't get any more of those injuries, because I'd love to see what they could really do if they're healthy against Ohio State this year. That should be pretty fun.
Yep, that'll be a great game. I agree. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. If you want some trades like that Beyond Meat trade, well, you got to get the unusual option activity. And the only place you can really get that, you can go to other places and they're going to cite 50 or 100 trades a day, and they don't know if that was bought or sold. It's just volume. We know it was bought. And if you're following smart money, your odds of winning are going to be much better. So check out marketrebellion.com/get started, or follow the QR code. There you go. marketrebellion.com/get started. But it's so easy. Why not just follow that QR code? And you could be making trades like that. Taking a call, the November 14 calls at $2.50 from 95 cents, call it $1, up to $7. That's a pretty nice return. So check it out. marketrebellion.com/get started. We do trades like this virtually every day. We don't know which ones are going to move 600%, but we do know it's a high likelihood that somebody really big and perhaps with some great information is establishing a big trade. And this trade, for instance, was 250,000 share equivalent, 2,500 calls. I could show you some where they traded 25 and 30,000 calls a week before this, but those expired last week, so I didn't want to share them with you. Make sure you check it out and join Pete and I tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the Rebels Edge.